Okay, the Module 6 Test Study Guide. As always, please try to do these problems on your own before you watch me do them, because that would be the best practice if you could actually get these answers on your own and then just check your work by watching this video. So the first few problems are just asked to determine the slope. So slope, remember, is rise over run, or change in x, change in y over change in x. So just really what's going on between these 2 points. It looks like we are going up 7 spaces, right? Which that would be my change in y. We're going to the right, do that in a different color. Going to the right 5 spaces, which would be my change in x. And remember, slope is always change in y over change in x. So what would your slope be? Your slope would be 7, which would be my change in y, over 5, which would be my change in x. And we always want to try to write slope in simplest or reduced form, and this is already in simplest form, 7/5. Rise 7, run 5. So number 2 is a horizontal line. So anytime you have a horizontal line, you should know by now, hopefully, that your slope is always going to be 0. But also remember on your test, if you have a vertical line, that slope would not be 0. It would actually be undefined if it was vertical. Okay? Now this problem right here is not undefined because it is not vertical. The slope for this would be 0. If you have a horizontal line, your slope is 0. So this right away I could tell my slope's negative, because remember, if you go down from left to right, your slope is always going to be negative. So I know my slope's going to be negative. And you could tell also by just looking at the points. If you start at that leftmost point, you're going down 3 spaces, not up 3 spaces. You're going down 3 spaces, which would be -3. Then you're going to the right 9 spaces. So what would your slope be? It'd be -3 over 9. That would be your slope. Find the slope between each pair of points. So for this, you'd need the slope formula, which you should have memorized by now. And that slope formula is m. Let me change colors. That slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. There's your change in y over change in x again, because that's really what slope is. It compares your change in the vertical with your change in the horizontal. So if we're finding the slope between these 2 points, you can just go ahead and label them if it makes it easier. That's your x1, that's your y1, that'd be your x2, that'd be your y2, and then just plug it in. So it'd be 9 minus 9 over 3 minus 5. Well, 9 minus 9 is 0. 3 minus 5 is -2. So because we have a 0 on the top, 0 divided by -2 would be 0. So your slope is 0. This is going to mean that this line would be a horizontal line. Now, what about if the 0 would have been on the bottom? If you would have had the 0 on the bottom and there was some number on the top, let's call that number A. So remember, if you have a 0 on the bottom, this right here would mean you can't divide something by nothing. You can't divide something by 0. So this right here would mean that the slope would be undefined. That would be an example of a vertical line. So anytime you have a 0 on the bottom, remember that's undefined. Whereas when you have a 0 on the top, that would be a slope of 0. Okay. Let me get rid of that. Let's go to the next one. So again, label x1, y1, x2, y2, and then use that slope formula. So it would be m equals -2 minus 13 over 6 minus -4. So we have 2 negatives here, so that would turn them both into positives. -2 minus 13 is -15. That would be -15 over, well, 6 plus 4 is 10. So negative slopes, that means my line is going to be going down from left to right. And if we were to simplify this, this would be -3/2. So for these next couple of problems, we have to identify the slope, and we have to identify the y-intercept, then we have to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So a few things that we need to do for this. So first, let's remember how to find our slope given a graph. To find your slope given a graph, just get 2 points, figure out the rise over run. If you're still confused about that, rewind this video a bit and watch the first 2 problems that we did. So if you look at this line, it looks like our rise, we're going up 2, and our run, we're going to the right 5. No, I'm sorry, that's 6. We went to the right 6. So our rise is 2, our run is 6. It's positive slope. So your slope is going to be 2 over 6, which simplifies to 1/3. Now, y-intercept, remember, y-intercept is a point where the graph crosses the y-axis. This point right here would not be your y-intercept. That would be your x-intercept, because this is your x-axis. So I saw a few of you get that confused a few days ago. The y-axis is that vertical one, the one that goes up and down. So what would the y-intercept be? Where does this line cross that y-axis? That's this point right here, which would be -2. And when we're talking about slope-intercept form, we usually label our y-intercept b. We usually call it b. So b is going to be -2. Now, hopefully, you know the formula or the equation for slope-intercept form by now. It's y equals mx plus b. So we just substitute the applicable information. There's going to be y equals 1/3 x minus 2. All right, number 9, I could tell my slope is going to be negative. So let's go ahead and figure the rise over run. It looks like we're going down 10, right? So 10, and we are running 2. So my slope is going to be, I should put a negative in front of this. My slope is going to be -10 over 2, which simplifies to -5. What's my y-intercept? Well, it looks like my y-intercept is this point right here, which on the y-axis, that would be +8. So my y-intercept would be +8. So what would my equation be? Y equals m, which is -5, x plus b, which in this case is 8. That's all you would have to do. Alright, so number 10 and 11, hopefully these would be your easy problems. So you're given the slope, you're given the y-intercept. So the main thing here is for you to remember slope-intercept form. You have to remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Do not forget that. And then all you're going to do here is plug in your m and plug in your b. So that would just be y equals m is 1/3. The slope is 1/3. And then plus b, your b is -1, so it would be -1. Same with the 11. That would just be y equals m, which is 1. So that would just be 1x, or just x, plus b, which is 8. All right, write each equation in slope-intercept form. So this is in standard form, and you want to change it to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, which would mean we'd have to solve for y. So remember that lesson we did on literal equations. I'm just going to move some variables around, subtract by 4x, because we're trying to get the y by itself. And that would be 10y equals -4x plus 10. Alright, still y is not by itself, so we have to divide everything by 10. And that would give you y equals -4/10 can simplify to -2/5 x, and then 10 over 10 would be +1. Now our standard form equation has been changed to slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Next, this problem tells you to identify the slope and the y-intercept once you have changed it to slope-intercept form. So the slope in this case, what would m be? -2/5. And what would our y-intercept be? 1. Or if you wanted to write it as an ordered pair, 0, 1. Alright, again we're going to solve for y, so that would be -12x on both sides, and that would give you -9y equals negative 12x minus 9. We still haven't solved for y yet. Y still has that negative 9 attached to it, so we'll divide by negative 9, everything by negative 9. And if you do that, you get y equals, well, this is a negative and a negative. Okay, so that would turn that into positive. And then 12/9 can be simplified to 4/3. And then negative 9 divided by negative 9 would be plus 1. Graph each equation using slope-intercept form. This is already in slope-intercept form. So first you should identify your slope and your y-intercept. Slope in this case is easy. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So the slope is going to be the number that's in front of x, which in this case is negative 4, or as a fraction that would be negative 4/1. And because we're dealing with slope, you want to have it as a fraction, right? You want to have your rise and your run. So because it's negative 4, that means we go down 4 and go to the right one. But this one might be a little confusing, trying to figure out your y-intercept, because there's nothing here. So if there's nothing here, what's your y-intercept? Well, what number represents nothing? I mean, what can we add to negative 4x? It wouldn't really change this equation. 0, right? So if that confuses you, just go ahead and add a plus 0. All right. So what is your y-intercept? It's going to be 0, which means this line is going to cross the y-axis at 0. And that's always your first step when you're trying to graph these equations using slope-intercept form. It's to graph the y-intercept. The y-intercept in this case is 0. I'm going to do it in blue. So that's right there. That's where the graph crosses the y-axis. All right, but you obviously need more than just one point to graph a line. That's what where our slope comes in handy. So because our slope is negative 4/1, that means we're going to go down 4 to the right 1, and we get another point. We could also go the other way. Instead of going down 4 to the right 1, we could go up 4 and to the left 1. All right, and once you have 2 or 3 points on there, connect that with as straight of a line as possible. Not what I did. Oof, it's still way off. I'll just give me one moment. My lines are just horrible. There we go. I cheated, but there's my line. All right. What's your slope? What's your m? What number's in the m position? That's 2/5. And what number is in the y-intercept position? That's 2. So your y-intercept is going to be 2. Graph crosses the y-axis at 2. We're going to go up 2 to the right 5. Just give me another point. And to get one more point, instead of going up 2, we'll go down 2, but this time to the left 5. And then to get another point. And then draw a straight line, and that will be your graph, or your line. That's all you need to do. Alright, these aren't in slope-intercept form, so before we could graph them using slope-intercept form, we'd have to change them to slope-intercept form. And if you're still confused as to how to change these type of standard form equations into slope-intercept form, rewind the video a bit and watch the problems that I explain more in detail on how to do that. Okay, because right now I'm just doing it fairly quickly because I've already explained it, and because I don't want this video to be too long. Alright, then 21 divided by 3 is 7. That tells me that my slope is negative 4/3 and my y-intercept is 7. So on my graph, I go up to 7. And my slope was negative 4/3, which would mean that I would go down 4 to the right 3. Let's get one more point on there. Down 4 to the right 3. And once you have that done, draw a line. Ooh. And you were done. 18, again, if you're still struggling with changing standard form to slope-intercept form, I recommend that you rewind the video and take a look at numbers 13 and 14, because I'm going to do this fairly quickly. So this would 0 minus 2x, there is nothing on that right side, so that would just be negative 2x. Or if you want to put negative 2x plus 0, that's fine as well. Divide both sides by 3, and you get y equals negative 2/3 x. So once again, we have a negative slope. Our slope is going to be negative 2/3. And what's our y-intercept? 0. 0 is right there, and that means we're going to go down to the right 3. Down to the right 3. And draw your line. Hopefully yours is straighter than mine. So for number 19, we're not graphing using slope-intercept form, we're graphing using intercepts. So let's first find our x-intercept. Remember, for x-intercept, y has to equal 0. So that means anywhere I see a y on my equation, I'm going to plug in a 0. So that would be 9x minus 15 times 0, which is just 0. So I could just not even put that down. That's going to be equals 45. And then we just divide both sides by 9, and we find that our x-intercept is 5. Or as an ordered pair, that would be 5, 0. What about your y-intercept? For y-intercept, we would set x to equal 0. So 9 times 0 is just 0. I'm not even going to write that down, which would just mean that we have negative 15y equals 45. You divide by negative 15 on both sides, and you get y equals negative 3. Or as an ordered pair, that would be 0, negative 3. Graph those 2 points, 5, 0, and negative 3, 0, and then connect them with a line. And that's all you would have to do. But do not solve this problem using slope-intercept form. Make sure you read the directions, because if you solve this using slope-intercept form and using the slope, even if you're correct, you technically didn't do what was asked of you. You were asked to find the intercepts and graph using the intercepts. So when you get problems like this, make sure you graph using intercepts. All right, remember, when it's x equals a number, that means it's going to be a vertical line. So x equals negative 7 means it's going to be a vertical line right here on 7. That's not straight. Just like that. Now, when it's y equals a number, that means it's going to be a horizontal line. So y equals 4 will be a horizontal line right there at 4. So remember, x is vertical line, y is horizontal line. Remember that for your tests. And last, point slope form, which is what we started on Wednesday and finished yesterday. So remember, the point slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So in this problem here, your ordered pair, x1 would be 4, y1 would be 1. And your slope is obviously 2. So that would be y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus 4. But they want you to write your final answer in slope-intercept form. So we'll have to solve this and manipulate this a bit by first using the distributive property. So that would be my y minus 1 equals 2x minus 8. We're almost there, but this isn't quite slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we'd have to add 1 on both sides, and we have y equals 2x minus 7. And that's in slope-intercept form. Same with this. We have x1 here, y1 here. And remember, point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this would be y minus negative 1 equals negative 3/4 x minus negative 8. Now these two negatives here will turn into a positive, and so will these, change. So that would be y plus 1 equals negative 3/4 times x plus 8. Distribute again, and if you do that, you get y plus 1 equals negative 3/4 x plus, plus minus 6. 3/4 times, negative 3/4 times 8 would be negative 6. Almost there. Last thing is get rid of that plus 1 by subtracting by 1. And if you do that, you get y equals negative 3/4 x minus 7, and that's in slope-intercept form. Alright, also for your tests tomorrow, make sure you know what standard form is. Standard form would be ax plus by equals c. Make sure you know what slope-intercept form is, which is y equals mx plus b, and also point slope, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Alright, that is it. That's your study guide video. Good luck on your test tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow.